let's get started. I'd like to first introduce our speaker today, Lori Roach. Lori works on our support team, training new Zapians to do support, both our new support teammates as well as everyone who does support through our All Hands Support initiative. We're very lucky to have Lori here today because she's an expert Zapier user. All right, remember you can ask all the questions that you want in the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen, and our team will save time to answer questions at the end of the webinar and work to answer some others in real time. And with that, I would love to let Lori take it away. Thanks for joining us, Lori.
All right, thanks, Katie, and welcome everyone to Zapier 101. Like Katie said, I'm Lori. I am a support trainer here at Zapier, and I'm here to teach you how to use Zapier so you can automate anything. So before we get started, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We're going to talk about what is Zapier. We're going to talk about how to unleash your Zaps, how to use Zapier, and we're going to look at get some ideas for how you can use Zapier to automate your day and save you some time. Then we'll look at our live demo where we're going to look at how to find Zaps that will work for you and how to build your own before we go into a Q&A. So let's start at the very beginning. What is Zapier? So Zapier is a tool that allows you to connect your favorite web apps with each other and move information between them automatically. This lets you forget your busy work and focus on what really matters in your business or in your personal life. We have over 2,000 apps, anything from Gmail to Facebook to Google Sheets, MailChimp, Slack, Salesforce, the list goes on. So you can connect any of these with any of these. And so if you take a look at our app directory, you'll likely find a lot of the apps that you use every day. And so you can bring those into your workflows. So brief detour while we talk about Zapier as a company. We are currently number 24 on the Forbes 2020 Cloud 100 apps. This is a list that Forbes put together showing what they think are the best private cloud companies in the world. And we are number 24, which is up from number 33 last year, which I think is pretty darn cool. One of the things that makes us pretty unique is we are a fully remote and distributed company. We have never had a central office. We have always worked from wherever we are, which means that we get to work with the smartest people from all over the world. We're not, location specific. Even though we don't work in an office together, we typically get together as a company a couple of times a year, either for an all company retreat or for your team specific retreats. Currently, we are just over 350 teammates around the world, and we have over 1.8 million businesses and individuals who are using Zapier, which results in about 10 hours saved per person per week, which is kind of incredible. I ran my numbers through our productivity calculator, and since I've been at Zapier, I have saved myself over 2,000 hours, and I'm very happy about that fact. And for those who are wondering, we pronounce it Zapier because Zapier makes you happier. All right, so as I said, Zapier allows you to connect the software you use every day and automatically send information between those apps without needing to know a single line of code, which is really great for people who are like, oh my gosh, code, I don't know what I'm doing. With Zapier, you don't need to. You just set it up in our editor, connect your apps, set up your workflows, and we do the rest for you. And so you don't need to hire a developer. You don't need to have an IT team. You can just do this on your own. So we have a little snapshot of just some of the 2,000 apps that you can connect. But honestly, there are billions of possible combinations that you can make to create all of your workflows. So to do this, we want to start by picking the apps you want to connect and then deciding what work you want to have happen automatically. So let's start with an app and an event. So every time you get a new subscriber in MailChimp, this is going to be our trigger. So now we need something to happen when that event occurs. So this could be maybe adding your new MailChimp subscriber as a lead to your CRM. And so this now becomes our action. So a Zap is a combination of these two things, a trigger and an action. And so we'll take a look at how to set this up in a few minutes. So we're going to take a look at some examples to sort of help get you thinking about how you can use Zapier in your everyday work. So this app that we're showing here is letting us consolidate information into your Google Sheets spreadsheet. Personally, I love Google Sheets. It's one of our most used apps on Zapier, or most used apps on Zapier, sorry. And it's just a great place to store all kinds of information and move a lot of information. And even I use it as like a little workaround to make other things do what I want them to do. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're just doing this manually or adding each piece, it gets time consuming and there's always a chance of human error. So, we want to make this a little easier. We want to automate this, make sure that it's accurate. And so we can do this using Zapier. So in the example we're looking at here, the Zap is taking submissions to a contact form in Typeform, and we're sending it to our spreadsheet in Google Sheets. So that gives you a chance to have all of your responses in one place so you can see them, get an idea of how many you've gotten, and also share that with the rest of your team. So this is one way that you can use Zapier with these two apps, but there are so many more opportunities. So let's take a look at another one. So let's say you're using Facebook today to capture your leads through a Facebook lead ad form. This app will let you follow up right away with the people who've reached out to you. So a few clicks in your Zap, and every time you get a new lead, we can automatically send this person an email that says, hey, thanks so much for connecting. I really appreciate you wanting to find out more. Here's the information you need. And so not only does this do this automatically, which makes your new customers feel really good about you and themselves, but it also lets you send them information that you don't have to keep manually doing. So include, maybe your PDF of information about your company, a link to your website, all sorts of information. So one thing I want to make clear is that it doesn't have to be Facebook and Gmail. It could be anything. So let's say you get your leads through another app. Let's say you use Ninja Forms on a WordPress site, or you're using a newsletter provider, or you've got a CRM and you want to automatically connect with those people. We can use any email program to do that. All right. So also what I wanted to emphasize here is that you don't have to only have one action. So you can add up to 100 action steps in one Zap. So let's say you want to get that new lead, you want to send them an email, but you also wanted to add a little notification to your Slack channel to let the rest of the team know, hey, we got a new lead. This now becomes a multi-step Zap. So what this means is your Zap does multiple jobs in your one workflow. And now when we have all these additional steps that we can add to our workflow, our possibilities go from billions to what I like to call Zaptillions, because the number of possibilities there actually isn't a word for it. So Zaptillion works for me. And I don't feel like you need to limit yourself to notifications about new leads. You could do anything as long as, the apps can connect. You can help, other ways in your life for your coworkers, for other departments, and also to help everyone get some extra time back in their days. To give you a few sort of random examples, I have a Zap that I use for my baseball team that sends a weekly reminder with the details of our game each week, where we are, what time, all that fun stuff. I also have another one that changes my Slack status. It sets the colors of the lights in my office and then tracks my time and toggle every time I have a meeting on my calendar. So again, possibilities endless. So if you are not using Zapier, or you have an account and you're not using it enough, here's a few ways to make your life a little bit easier. Things like engaging leads. So like we looked at, delivering a personal message as soon as somebody reaches out. That means you can also act a little bit more quickly on your opportunities. You can import customers from your e-commerce website to your CRM, maybe send it to your email marketing platform. Notify your team about new opportunities, new leads, any kind of thing that you need to remind them about, sending out Slack messages, emails, any of those things. And honestly, my absolute favorite is saving time. For example, I have a friend who is in charge of a blog at his work, and he saved hours every week by using Zaps to share the blog posts across all of their social media sites. So instead of having to go each time and post it himself, Zapier did all the work for them. All right, so one last thing before we jump into the demo is I want to sort of look at some of our basic Zapier some basic Zapier terms to add a little bit of extra context. So you're going to hear us refer to the word app. So an app is the application that you want to connect with Zapier. So this is, Gmail, Google Calendar, Slack, any app that you're using. A Zap is what we call the workflow that connects your apps. So every Zap will always have a trigger to get it started and at least one, but as many up to 100 actions. A trigger is the event that kickstarts your Zap. So think about what is the thing that you want to have happen that starts your workflow. So an action is the event or the events that happen after the trigger. So in the flow that we're looking at in the slide, the trigger is you get a brand new lead in Facebook lead ads, then the action happens, which sends the message to Slack to notify your team. You're also going to hear us use the word task. So a task is what we call the action that the Zap performs. So for example, if you have a Zap that automatically sends an email, each time Zapier sends that email, this counts as one task. And your task history is the place on your dashboard where you can actually see all of the things that have happened, what data went through, and what tasks were accumulated and how this was used. And we're going to take a look at that in a few minutes as well. All right, so let's do a little bit of a live demo. And now that we've got a little bit more context, and we are going to build a couple of zaps. So bear with me for a second while I figure out how to share my screen. All right. Yes, share. There we go. Voila. All right, so we are going to start with the Zapier dashboard. So when you log into Zapier, you will arrive here. And so just a few things, you can see a list of your zaps under the zaps. You can see any apps that you're connected to. You can get to your task history. You can explore the apps that we connect with, and you can get help right from your sidebar here. You'll also see information about the plan that you are on. So let's focus on this middle part here, which is actually setting up our zaps. Oops, just grab my notes here. There we go. All right, so front and center, we can go ahead and connect a couple of apps. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up the zap that we looked at earlier, which is Typeform. And one of the things you'll notice is this is gonna start to load in some already created Zap templates. And so literally we can click this, try this, or open this up and get more information about the workflow that we're trying to do. So in fact, this is the workflow that we're trying to do, is we want to collect new Typeform responses and add them as a new row in Google Sheets. If we didn't see this here, if this didn't load and we went through a bunch of these and didn't find the one we were looking for, not to worry. We can go ahead and just put Google Sheets right into the box here. And we can actually build our own based on the available triggers and the available actions. So we know that our trigger is going to be a new entry in Typeform, and then our action is going to be create a spreadsheet row. So again, we've got the already built Zap for us, or we can build our own. If this wasn't here, if the Zap template wasn't here, you get a nice big button that says build this app, and we click that and away we go. So in fact, let's click this blue button and away we go. We're going to build a new Zap. And so when we're using this template and when we build it for us, a lot of this is going to already be in place. So we'll give that a second to load. There we go. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our Typeform account. And we're going to choose the form that we want to connect to. So in this case, there should be, yep, there should be one with my name on it. All ready to go. And then we're going to get an option to test our trigger. And we really want to make sure that we do this, because what this is going to do is give us the fields that we get from this particular app when this particular trigger runs, so that we have this information to send to our action steps. So in this case, Google Sheets. So we can see the most recent entry here. So let's go ahead and move on to our Google Sheets step. So our spreadsheet again is this one, and our worksheet. All right. Oh, and that took us right to not filling out all of this information. So you can see here that I did not do this right. And had this worked, I would have sent no information to the spreadsheet, which would have been not very helpful. So what you're going to see here are fields for each of the columns in my spreadsheet. So you can see here in my spreadsheet, I have, why are you reaching out, your message, your name, and your email. So we want to make sure that the information that we received from Typeform goes to the right place in our spreadsheet. So why are you reaching out? We're going to grab the form response, which is what's your message about? And then we will include the message. And so you're going to hear this term a lot if you're reaching out to support, which is mapping fields. And essentially that's what we're doing here, is we're mapping fields, which honestly is just a fancy way of saying choose the field that you want to appear here from the dropdown. So we're just going to go ahead and map all of these fields, make sure that name goes in the right place, email goes in the right place. And then we'll continue. And so from here, we're going to get an option to test this to make sure that it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and test that and review it. And we should see that this bob@bob.com reappeared at the bottom of our sheet. So just to see this in action, I'm going to go ahead and turn this app on. And we are going to put in a new response. So we've got some feedback. We're going to tell the people that they are awesome. And hit that submit. And we should see almost instantly, Frida Jones is now in our spreadsheet. So it's that fast and that easy to get your information moved over, and way faster than you doing it on your own. So one of the things, and this actually brings me to something else that I want to talk about. And so you'll see here in the Zap, so there's the Zap that we just built, which is Typeform to Google Sheets, and you're going to see this instant tag beside it in our Zap list. So we actually have two types of triggers. We have an instant trigger and we have what's called a polling trigger. So an instant trigger happens pretty much as advertised. It happens instantly. Fill out the form, it automatically arrives in Google Sheets. A polling trigger works a little bit differently in that what happens here is we reach out to the app, we basically knock on the door and we're like, hey, is there anything new? If there's something new, we're gonna grab that, trigger the Zap, and keep on going. If we don't find anything, we're like, all right, cool, we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll check again. So how often we check is entirely dependent on the plan that you are on. So for our free and our starter plans, it's going to be a little bit longer of a time. Whereas if you move to teams and companies, it's going to be a much shorter time that we keep checking. So while we're talking about that, let's take a look at building another Zap with a little bit more information, because this is going to give us a bit more control. So one of the things that I've noticed, we have a lot of Zoom meetings at Zapier. Obviously, because we're remote, we meet virtually, so we almost always meet via Zoom. But the problem that I've noticed is that if people put the Zoom link into your calendar meeting, which a lot of people do, it's really wonderful. They all put it into our location field. The problem is right before the meeting starts, you have to go to your calendar, you have to open the calendar, you have to find the Zoom link, and then you have to click it, and it always makes me late. So I want to make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to surface that Zoom link, send it to me by Slack. So I have it a couple of minutes before the meeting. So as soon as I'm ready to join, I click the link. I don't have to go digging, and now I'm on time for my meetings, which makes my manager very happy. So let us build that. So we are going to start with Google Calendar. And one of the things that I really like about Google Calendar and our Google Calendar integration is it has a trigger which is called Event Start. And what this does, it lets us trigger every time an event starts, and then we can set it to trigger a few minutes before that event start, which is exactly what I want to have happen. So let's go ahead and we're going to build this. And so now we want to take a look at how much before the meeting we want to start. Let's see, where is schedule? There we go. So when you're on a free or starter plan, our polling time that I just talked about is 15 minutes. So I always want to give it a little bit of a buffer, because there's a chance if the 15-minute isn't on the hour, like the 0, the 15, the 30, the 45, if it's off that, when it polls, we might miss an event. So I always give it a bigger buffer. So the recommendation is 16 minutes. I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to go 30 minutes before the event. And that way I'm 100% sure that all of my events are going to get caught. So let's customize this. We're going to pull in an event and pull in some test information, so we have that to work with. And you can see my most recent meetings. So let's go ahead. Now, I have meetings that are not on Zoom. I also really like Slack calls for meetings, but sometimes maybe I have an appointment that is not going to be on the account. So what I want to do is not go through this process if there is no Zoom link that I don't need, so I don't need to pull it out, because why add stuff to my Slack messages if I don't actually need the Zoom link? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a filter step to the Zap, which is going to check to make sure that a Zoom link was actually provided in the event. And if there wasn't, we're just going to stop the Zap right here. So we are going to look for the location field, which is where everybody puts our Zoom links, and we want to check to see if it contains the word Zoom. And so let's test this out. And you're going to see here a filter that says this app would have stopped if we compared it to this filter. And that's because we're checking the sample data that we got from our Google Calendar step, and we didn't have anything in location. So because there's nothing there, obviously it didn't match the word Zoom, the Zap stops. If it does continue, let's move on to our next step. So in this case, here we go. I'm going to add a delay. I don't necessarily want my appointments to come half an hour before the event, because then I'm going to forget and I'm still going to be late. So I want it to come like a minute or two right before the event, and that way, you know, it's there when I need it, when I'm ready to sign on. So what we're going to do is we are going to delay specifically until 2 minutes before the event. And the good thing about some of our fields, and you can see that when you have the little calendar icon right there, is that we can actually get the editor to do a little math for us when the Zap runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it start right at the beginning of the event, and then I'm going to say do it 2 minutes before that. So we're going to delay until 2 minutes before the event time. And we'll, you know, our Zaps are smart enough that they're going to be able to know, hey, we want to subtract 2 minutes, and that's the time we want this to run. So let's go ahead and continue that. We've got our delay happening. And our last step is we're going to add our message in Slack. And I'm going to send it as a DM, because obviously the rest of the company doesn't need to know every time I have a meeting and have a Zoom link to it. And I'm going to send it to myself. Oops. Here's the link. And then from now, we can just map that Zoom link from our location field. And we can just set that up. We'll use Zapier. Use the Zapier icon, and the rest we can leave as is. We'll just go ahead and set that. And so now every time I have a calendar meeting that has a Zoom link, that's going to get sent off. So one last thing I want to take a look at here is the task history. So this is the Zap that we just built. And you can see we've got 2 different tasks. So one of these ran and it was filtered. So you can see if we take a look at the information about this particular event, you can see that there was no location. We can do a search to prove that. Yep, so nothing in the location field. So because we had nothing in the location field, the Zap was stopped. Right here at my filter, it says missing value, nothing was there, doesn't contain Zoom. So we're going to stop the Zap. So in the terms of your task history and how much your task usage is, this actually doesn't count as any tasks because there was no successful action. So because we stopped at the filter, this step didn't run, this step didn't run, and this was not successful. So this doesn't count as a task on your task usage. And you can see that here, total tasks used is 0. We can also see that in the whole task log for this Zap. Oops, I'll be back, there we go. This counted as 0. Now, when it ran successfully, you can see here that we did get a Zoom link in our location field. So it passed our filter because we had this Zoom link. It contained Zoom. We went on to the next step. We delayed till 2 minutes before the meeting at 4:30. So you can see 4:28. And we sent the message to Zoom, which was, you know, you have a meeting, here's your link. And I had the link so that I was on time for my meeting. So in this case, we had 3 successful actions. Our filter passed, our delay ran, and we sent the message to Slack. So this counts as 3 tasks towards our task usage. So every time this runs, every time I get a Zoom link, this counts as 3 tasks towards my task usage. And so not only do we see this here at the bottom, but we also see it in our task log. So oops, too far. Yep, right here, 3 tasks. All right, so that is basically building Zaps. This is what it looks like. So with that, I'm going to wrap up our demo and open the floor to any questions. Katie.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. That was great. We've got a lot of great questions here. And one of the main questions we got is, will this webinar be recorded? And yes, it is. We'll be sending this out to you. Hopefully by tomorrow, you'll get the recording in an email. Okay, this is for you, Lori. I have a larger business. Do you have a specific plan for companies versus individuals?
Yes, we absolutely do. We have a teams plan and we have a companies plan. So the teams plan. So different prices and then different features for each of those. So for example, with the companies plan, and you can see these on zapier.com/pricing. Oops. I think I stopped sharing my screen, so I'm not going to be able to show this off. But with our company's plan, this includes, your multi-step Zaps, unlimited premium apps, so you can use all of our premium apps. You can get your filters, your formatters, webhooks, paths, auto replay, unlimited users, and then we're getting into more advanced things where you have advanced admin permissions if you're on the company's plan versus the team's plan. You'll also get like a single sign-on, more data retention, and then if you're on the teams, you get like a shared workspace, and you also can share Zaps among your teammates. This is really helpful, especially if somebody leaves your company and you want to still be able to have access to all of the Zaps that they've had built. You can set that up through the team plans and the company.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have a lot of specific questions about what apps work together. And I just want to let everyone know that you can also go to zapier.com/apps, and you'll be able to see all of the different apps that we have and how they all work together. But here's a specific question, Lori. Can we use Excel the same way Zapier works with Google Sheets?
Yes, I mean, I think there might be slightly different tools, triggers and actions, but for the most part, yes.
Okay.
Pull in a quick here. Yeah, so I'm gonna actually pop this into the chat so that you can see it. And then this is what we call a app integration page. And so from here you can see all of the available triggers and actions for that specific app. Cool. And that lets you see what you can do with one. And we have one of these for every single app that we integrate with. So you can always go through that zapier.com/apps page and go and see what is available with that particular app and what triggers and actions that we have.
Great. Someone asked, can you repeat the names of the 2 different types of triggers, please?
Yep, instant and polling. And so I think I don't know if Ryan's had a chance to share this, but we have a frequently asked questions page in our community, and that will definitely give you more detail about the 2 types of triggers, which are polling and instant.
Awesome. What does it mean? What does premium app mean? I saw it next to in your demo.
Yes. Okay. So we have a few apps. I think it's 62 apps are premium apps. And so these apps are slightly more complicated in terms of development, in terms of support. And so because they require a bit more work on our end, we've made them premium apps, which means that they're only available to be able to use in your Zaps if you're on a paid plan. So any of our paid plans, so from starter all the way up to companies, you have access to our premium apps. You're just not going to be able to use those on our free plans.
Okay. Do people usually have master Zapier users at their company, or do teams typically all know how to use it?
I personally, I think anybody should be able to use it. I am a big fan of playing. And that is how I learned Zapier. I just sat down, when I started here, well, actually before I started here, when I decided I wanted to apply, and I opened Zapier and I opened the editor. I'm like, I'm going to do a thing and let's see what I can do with it. And I think that is that experimentation, that, what happens when I click this button, is honestly the best way to learn things. And so, it's not like you're going to break Zapier by going in and just sort of playing with Zaps and building things. And as you start clicking through, I think you're going to find that it's not as scary as you might think it is. And you don't need a master Zapier user. I think after a while, you're going to be the master Zapier user. And then you're going to be like, what else can I automate? And then you're going to automate all of the things, and it's going to be really exciting.
Great. Okay, let's see. How many integrations are included in the free plan?
All of them except for our premium apps.
Okay.
So the over 2,000 minus the 62 premium apps.
Awesome. Okay, and then we have had quite a few questions on customized apps and workflows. So I just am going to recommend that if you do have any specific questions about your specific instance, feel free to reach out to zapier.com/contact-us. We can put that link in the chat box to get specific help on any questions and issues that you might have.
Yeah, and we have I mean, I'm a little biased, but we have an amazing support team, and we are happy to help. If you want to brainstorm an idea, if you're stuck with your your workflow that you're trying to build, reach out. We're happy to help.
Great. Here's another one. Can you integrate with apps that are not on the Zapier list but have an open API key?
Probably. I want to say yes, but there's going to be a few caveats. So yes, it has to have an API that we can access. And so there's a few ways you could do that. One is build your own app on Zapier. It is free to do. Anybody can do it. So if you just want to head on over to our developers section, you can build your own app, and that's a good way to connect. If that's a little too advanced, we have our Webhooks by Zapier app, which will let you connect both post and get, so you can get information from your app or post information to your app. There's also things like using our parser, our email parser by Zapier. There's like an RSS feed. So really it depends on what the app does and how we connect, how you connect it, how we can connect to it. But yeah, there's a lot of options. There is a blog post. There's a really good blog post for that. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Here we go. Yes, this is it. I'll paste that into the chat here. And that'll go over some of the things that I just talked about, like our webhooks and some of the other things that you can do with apps that don't have an integration on Zapier.
Okay. And then here's another one. Is there a blog article or list of top recommended Zaps to help with individual productivity?
Yes, we have an amazing tool. We actually have an entire example section, and I'm going to paste that as well into the, here we go. Into the chat. So this is a number of examples of all sorts of things. So if you're like a realtor, you're looking for help with social media, you're looking for productivity, email marketing, there are all sorts of samples apps that you can use and build on for your workflow.
Awesome. Okay. Looks like we have time for a few more here. I'm trying not to get too technical. Some of these questions are really specific and technical. So if you do have those questions, feel free to reach out to our support team and they'll get you set up.
Okay, so I'm seeing one on that. Sorry, I'm going to jump in, but I'm seeing one in the Q&A about if-then statements. So yes, so the filter, we have if the Zoom link existed in our calendar event, then we send the Slack message. We can also take that a little bit higher with paths. So now our paths tool is available on our professional plan and higher. So that's professional teams and companies. And that will give you different paths for your if statement. So if X happens, do Y. If A happens, do B. If C happens, do D. So yeah, you can definitely do if-then statements and have different things happen dependent on the information that came through.
Great. What is the workaround to be able to have more than one trigger?
There isn't one.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only have one trigger. You can have as many actions as you like, but you can only have one trigger. So I guess the workaround is build another Zap.
Great. If a problem arises with an established Zap, will I be notified?
Yes, yeah. So if you run into errors with your Zap when it's running, we will send you a notification. If you really want like immediate, something broke and I need to know right away, we have an app called Zapier Manager. And so Zapier Manager, you can be used in a Zap that triggers whenever a Zap hits an error and then have it send a message to you. So whether that's Slack or SMS or email, carrier pigeon, you can set up a Zap. Although I don't think we integrate with carrier pigeons, unfortunately, but yes.
Love it. Does Zapier have an app to work from your cell phone?
Not yet. Not yet. I know, yeah. Let's just say not yet. You can get to the Zapier website, but honestly, it's a much better experience if you use the desktop version.
Okay. Let's see here. This person is asking, how many Zaps do you recommend to have for the Zap integration to work successfully? Meaning, is there a Zap limit? Whereas if you have too many Zaps, it could crash?
I not that I've seen, and I got to tell you, there are a lot of Zaps on the Zapier company plan. I don't know if you saw in when I was looking at my dashboard, but I personally, and not just on the company, but I've probably got several hundred Zaps running. Yeah. Oh no, I mean, I cleared out a bunch of them, but yeah, I've probably got at least 100 that are currently running. So that's just me. You could sort of multiply that around 350 people, and that's a lot of Zaps. So no, I don't think there's a limit that's going to break.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I think that's all for now. We had really great questions, and again, feel free to contact support if weren't able to get to your questions. I know Ryan was working hard on the other end to answer some of your questions, but feel free to reach out to us, and also check out the different resources that we sent over to you, the FAQ doc and the Zapier Quick Start Guide, which if you haven't seen that yet, let me just set that right into the chat so you guys can get to it. And remember, this has been recorded and we'll be sending it out to you afterwards. Also check out our YouTube channel. We have done a bunch of other webinars similar to this with different Zaps, so you can check those out. And thank you so much, Lori. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
Yep. Thank you so much.